1 to 1.2 million page views a month, 80% from search engines, $238,000 in top-line revenue with a 50 to 60% profit margin. Are those the kind of numbers you would like to see in your business? Well, I'm happy to say that you are about to hear an interview with a business owner that has those exact numbers. Today, you will hear from Jeff Proctor, co-founder of DollarSprout.com and BreakingThe1%.com. And just to clarify, over 90% of the income comes from DollarSprout. I was doing some keyword research from my blog a couple of months ago, and I started to see this site I'd never heard of before called DollarSprout. The deeper I dug, the more curious I got. This site appeared to have come out of nowhere over the past year, dominating tons of number one rankings in Google. As I did some more Googling, I found what the founders were up to, Jeff and his partner Ben, and reached out to make a connection. Well, as it would turn out, Jeff was already a member of the Niche Pursuits Facebook group. How cool is that? You should really check out the Niche Pursuits Facebook group if you haven't joined yet. Lots of cool people there. Anyway, I reached out and asked Jeff to come on the podcast to tell his story. What you are about to hear is the story of how Jeff and his partner Ben built DollarSprout into a six-figure-a-month business with most of its traffic coming from Google. Tons of valuable tips and lessons to be learned, so I hope you listen to the end. Enjoy. Hey Jeff, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Hey Spencer, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is great to connect here via audio. I was just mentioning to you here that I kind of noticed your website a little while ago. I was just doing some keyword research on my own, and this website called DollarSprout kept popping up all over the place. And so I had to dig a little bit deeper. And as I did, I saw the really cool things that you guys were doing over at DollarSprout, the big success, the big growth that you've had. And so I wanted to have you on the podcast. So I want to dive into DollarSprout and of course your other site, Breaking the 1%. But first, I'm interested in hearing a little bit of your background. So can you give us a brief background on sort of your business and work experience previous to building websites?
Yeah. So without making this too long of a drawn out story, I went to Virginia Tech for undergraduate degree. I was actually studying biochemistry with the hopes of eventually going to med school and being a doctor and doing all of that. And right around when the stock market crashed in 2008, I got really interested in personal finance simply because I'd always heard, buy stocks low and sell high. So I heard that everything was crashing and I was like, oh, hey, this might be a good time to buy, not knowing anything about what was really going on or like why stocks were down so much or whatever. But essentially, that's kind of what started my interest in personal finance was basically like a recession. So, I finished out my degree in biochemistry at Virginia Tech. And then when I graduated in 2013, I realized that I don't actually want to go to med school. I didn't have great grades for it anyway, so it's not like I could have even gotten in. I slowly realized all I really ever read about is investing in personal finance. And, why don't I try to get a job in that field? So I applied to, probably about 50 different places, in May of 2013, the month I was graduating. I was totally unprepared for the real world, got rejected from a bunch of places, and then actually finally got one interview at a local place, a local wealth management firm here in Blacksburg, and got a job there. It wasn't a great job. It was, I was an assistant to a financial advisor making $8 an hour when I first started out. So, four-year degree. Yeah, four-year degree. All the student loans, all of that, and I'm making, minimum wage pretty much. So worked there for a couple years, about 2.5 years, slowly kind of worked my way up from $8 an hour till by the time I left there, I was salaried at $40,000 a year, which is definitely more than enough to live off of in this area. But I kind of, through that work experience, really figured out that I don't like having a boss.
Right.
So, looking back, I was very fortunate to have, a rough start to my professional working career, because it ultimately guided me down the path of, trying this whole online entrepreneurship thing out. So,
right.
Yeah, after I worked there for about 2.5 years, then I left there to start what would eventually become Dollar Sprout. But, that's kind of a long story there, where we wanted to start an investment, subscription, research based website. And that kind of ended up being a flop, as many people experience their first time, trying to start a business.
Right.
But eventually, after a few years of trial and error, everything kind of became what is Dollar Sprout today, which is an online personal finance blog that's mainly monetized through affiliate marketing.
Okay.
And by mainly, I mean 99%. So
awesome.
Yeah.
No, very cool. And so you did start another website, and again, kind of through my own little research, I can see what your old domain was. Looks like you redirected it. You got the new name Dollar Sprout at some point, right? And redirected everything over. So what was the year that you sort of started that first website?
Yeah, so the first website was actually called vtxcapital.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, like I said before, it was, designed to be a membership website, where the idea at least was to have people, pay us a monthly subscription fee to see what stocks we're trading.
Okay.
Because that was what I was really into at the time. And I quickly realized that, doing creating the product and marketing it and getting sales while competing with the major players in the space, like Morningstar and all these elite websites, it was just a hopeless endeavor. After trying that for a while, then I think it was October 2017, we had kind of already transitioned to a blog and affiliate marketing focus. But then we had the problem where the domain vtxcapital.com was not at all reflective of what we had become. So we bought the domain name dollarsprout.com. We bought it from a website called brandroot.com, which is, one of these kind of, I guess, domain brokers of sorts, where they have, at least somewhat brandable domains, and they give you a logo and all that. So I think we paid $1,600 for the Dollar Sprout domain, and it didn't really have any links to it to speak of. It was, for the most part, a clean slate, but it was something that, we thought was brandable, and we could, really build something around it that made sense for our brand. Okay. So yeah, we did that full transition, started VTX originally in August 2015, and then October 2017 is when we fully transitioned into dollarsprout.com. Okay. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned we a couple of times, and I know you have a partner in Dollar Sprout, but why don't you tell us, why you have a partner, how that goes, what's the responsibilities, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So there's myself, Jeff, and my business partner, Ben, who is actually my friend from college, and we're still roommates, actually living in the same apartment now, 5+ years later. So, we had met in undergrad, and, we always kind of had the idea that someday we were going to start a business together. We didn't really know what, and it was, for a long time on the back burner. Ben actually studied biology in school, and he is a registered nurse. So he was working for a few years as a nurse, and actually he still has his nursing license. But yeah, he has more of the technical background. He's kind of always been a bit more of a computer nerd than me. So we kind of thought, okay, I'm working in this finance job. I, want to use my finance and investing skills, but not in a traditional work environment. I want to do it on my own. And Ben, has the technical know-how to kind of get us off the ground a bit. So kind of that's how it's been for the most part for us. Okay. As we build out is, he's a lot more of the background stuff, all the technical stuff. And he actually, leads up a lot of our SEO efforts, which is a big source for our traffic. And then now we've, added on a few editors, and we have a team of freelance writers and designers and all that. So in all, like including me and Ben, we probably have about 20 folks total between full-time and contract workers helping us on a month-to-month basis with Dollar Sprout.
Cool. So you've definitely grown it into something more significant. And I do want to give the listeners a sense of how well your business is doing in terms of Dollar Sprout. So what can you share with people that'll help them understand the success? You know, if you're willing to share income numbers, people love that, traffic, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'll start off with traffic. When we first started Dollar Sprout, we had, basically no traffic because we started it kind of on the side of what was VTX Capital before, because VTX was like a little bit established, but we still kind of wanted to build up Dollar Sprout and like see if that like brand would work or whatever. So started off with like essentially zero traffic to Dollar Sprout, and as of now, we're getting roughly between like 1 and 1.2 million page views a month, I believe, to Dollar Sprout. And the majority of that, I would say 80% or so, is coming from search engines. And from all of that traffic, and if you include, we also include our income from breaking the 1% or BTOP in our total income numbers, but it's probably about maybe 7% of our total income. But last month, our top line revenue was, I believe, $238,000. And our profit margins right now, we're aiming for between 50 and 60% profit margins. So sometimes, we're trying to make a habit of, reinvesting money back into the business. So we've been very fortunate to, be the beneficiaries of a lot of growth in our first couple years of doing this.
Yeah. First of all, just congrats, man. Those are huge numbers.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. And to give more context to this, for the first year that we started the business, I had left my full-time job to do entrepreneurship full-time. But when I had left, we weren't making any money at all. So that was, definitely a big stressor and a big mistake to make, just to, blindly leap into this. And actually for the first year, we didn't make any money. And I actually had to go back to get a full-time job after the first year of, failing at this. So it definitely, like, when you take a step back, it looks like an overnight success story, even though it's been, 4 years. But yeah, we only just crossed the 6-figure monthly barrier. I think it was in December of last year was our first $100,000 month, I believe. And right now it's May 2019. So yeah, we've been very lucky and very fortunate to be able to get where we're at.
All right. There's a lot to unpack there. A lot of people, obviously, when they hear the big numbers, they want to be able to replicate that. They want to know, what's your secret sauce? What are you doing that's working? There's obviously other people out there that have tried for a year or 2 years and things just don't take off, right? They make $500 in a month, and maybe that's as much as they ever make. So focusing, of course, on Dollar Sprout, which is the big business there. Can you give us a high level strategy that you followed that is working? Yeah.
So for us, it was more, when we first started out, we wanted, like I said, to be a subscription based model. And then, after a while, that just wasn't working. Like we just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And, the next step for us was, we had AdSense ads on for a while, and that made like $2 a month or something pathetic. Right. And then, we kind of heard about affiliate marketing and, decided to, try it out. And that was our first like little glimpse of success, was when we first started out affiliate marketing and using Pinterest as a way to get traffic. That's kind of where our first breakthrough like moment was kind of affiliate marketing and Pinterest. And it happened that we discovered both at the same time. So the way that looked for us was, we went from, $15 a month to then we had like a $500 a month. And for us, we, if you look back, we had a year where nothing worked. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we had a $500 a month or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly. But, when that happened, Ben and I were like, okay, like let's drop everything else that we're trying to do, that we're just wasting our time and spinning our wheels, and like let's figure out like how affiliate marketing works. Because like we just threw some links in an article and it got traffic on Pinterest, but like we didn't know what we were doing. So we really like, I would say like the biggest like creditor to our success is, when we found something that works and then we like got really good at that one thing. So, you'll see a lot of the bigger bloggers out there will like swear by like selling courses and, masterminds and all of that. And like, we don't do any of that on Dollar Sprout. It just wasn't something that was going to work for us. And we, once we started doing affiliate marketing, we just got super focused on that. And then, once we had some traction with Pinterest, we started to kind of explore SEO a little bit more. And that's when things like really blew up for us. And again, this is like, it's a slow process, like all of this stuff. Like, once you decide you want to learn a certain skill, it's like, nothing about it. So like when we first started learning about SEO, I mean, we didn't get any of the benefits for like a year, just because, when we were starting out, like, making sure all the lights are green in Yoast, like you think you're doing a good job. And then it's like, oh, that's only like 5% of the equation. So,
right.
It's also just like a compounding effect of, getting incrementally better at enough things over time to where now it's just like a lot of different channels are working well for us.
So I know that you said, I think somewhere around 80% is search engine traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to jump into SEO and try to get as many details out of you as we can here. I want to ask about, let's maybe start with your content strategy. So kind of take us through, what is the content strategy from maybe finding keywords to, finished piece of content?
Yeah. So for us, the way that we have our site set up now is we have 4 main content verticals, so to speak. And we have make money, like anything about like side hustles, like different businesses you can start or whatever. Like that is one category. Then we have banking and investing, and then money management, which is kind of a catch-all category. Where we first saw the most success on our site was with articles on making money that did well on Pinterest. So that's where we then decided, like, okay, if this is having success here, like if we can leverage search as well for this content vertical, that could potentially be a good thing. So we started doing keyword research, and honestly, nothing about our keyword research is anything different than you would read on, any SEO blog out there. You look at what your competitors are ranking for, what they're doing well, like what's getting them traffic, and then basically just try to write something better. So for us, the way that typically looks is, we'll get the keywords, and then what we do is, since we frequently hire freelance writers to help us create content, because actually I'm a very slow writer and so has Ben. So we really like to use freelance writers that are like good at what they do. And what we do is we'll like take the keyword and then we'll create essentially an outline for that writer to follow. So we don't just tell a writer, hey, write me an article about the best online savings accounts or whatever. We'll like say like, okay, we'll put in like 30 minutes worth of work and like create an outline, come up with a target word count and the different keywords we want to include. And if there's any affiliates, we'll mention like, where those should go and that type of thing. So by the time a freelance writer gets an assignment for us, we've done the keyword research and we've created an outline, and we have kind of an idea of, where the traffic is going to be coming from for this article. So for us, it's mostly SEO. But if it was, more of a social media oriented piece, we would structure it accordingly. So that's kind of been like the baseline or basis for how we've, built out our content strategy. And then from there, it's just a volume game, just getting, more content. The more content you have, the more opportunities you have to rank well. So that's really all it is.
Okay. So you mentioned that you kind of look at competitors and essentially you're just trying to create a better piece of content. In terms of better, does that just mean longer, or how do you define that?
Yeah. So I think length is definitely a factor. And this is actually something that Ben and I have talked about quite a bit over the past few months, is that it seems like the MO for most people that are trying to like rank on page one is like, hey, just write something longer than the longest one on page one. And I think for a while that's been working for a lot of people, including us. But I can see a point to where Google, I anticipate there's going to be a day where Google decides like, okay, it's not just about like the length of your content. Like no one really wants to read a 9,000 word article on whatever. Like they just want to get an answer to their question.
Right.
So I think that's more of just like a personal, like, I guess, prediction or whatever is, we don't try to blindly, just write the longest piece of content there is on the topic, but we do like say on page one, the longest article, like we'll basically try to write something longer than at least like 7 out of the 10 articles on page one. So we're not always gunning for the longest length, but we do try to have like answer the question most thoroughly, interlink to like appropriate resources and external link to appropriate resources. And again, this is a work in progress. We're still like one of our big projects right now is like going back through our old content and updating it to like bring it up to like our current standards. And, when I look at some of our older stuff, even though like even still it's ranking on page one, it's like I look at it and I cringe because like, this needs to be better. Like
right.
we can serve the reader so much better than what we're doing now. So it's always like a continual process of, and I know like everyone hates when someone goes on a podcast and says like, it's all about user experience, but the more that we've grown and, tried to make our site better, it really does come back to just user experience. Does your page load fast? Is your content like written out in a format that makes sense for the reader? Like, are you actually answering their question, or are you just, spamming them with affiliate links,
right?
Or, whatever. And, we've made every mistake out there. We've had over optimized posts, over monetized posts. We've had stuff jumbled up. And I mean, it really is just trial and error to an extent.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you do mention that you're mostly using freelance writers now. Do you mind sharing how much you're paying them on average?
Yeah. So we started off, I started off with the mindset of, try to get the best deal you can on a writer. And I think there's a time and a place for that, for like when you're first getting started out. But then I realized, we're spending a lot of time editing this stuff that I'm paying 5 cents a word for. So,
yeah.
Is it really worth, paying so little? And so now I would say most of our writers are paid between 20 and 35 cents a word, depending on,
wow.
Skill level and experience. Yeah. So now in my niche, in personal finance niche, that's definitely a higher price than other niches, because it does require some like subject matter expertise.
Right.
And, we're really trying to compete with some of the biggest players in this space. So we're recruiting, top level writers that have been, writing for a bunch of other publications. So, that's something where we didn't start off doing it that way. We started off on Upwork like everybody else does, finding someone that will write for 5 cents a word or whatever. And then we've slowly built up to where now we're investing more upfront in writers and, a little bit less time editing, ideally. But
how much content do you have on your site now, roughly?
I believe we have 225 articles, around 230 articles on the site now, and we have roughly 100 unpublished drafts that we are working on getting out.
Wow.
So actually one of our big projects this week is figuring out, since all of our content or most of our content is evergreen content, which is great for an SEO site. So, nothing becomes irrelevant, but now we really need to focus on keeping the quality high on the stuff that we've already put out, just like going back through and updating like interlinks and like making our content more complete, because, when we have created all of this content, we're obviously not ranking for every single article we write, but the reason that anything gets put on our content calendar is with the goal of, ranking in the top 5 of Google eventually for that search term. So say we have 230 articles live on our site now, and, maybe 40 of them get, most of our traffic. So we have almost 200 articles that are just out there. They're SEO optimized. They're good, but they're not great. So, we need to go back and actually get the most out of the stuff that we already have. So that's been a big focus for us for the past few months. Just trying to figure out how the heck we're going to maintain this beast that we've created.
I completely understand. Going back and updating content that you're referring to, and adding internal links, and just maintaining content. I mean, it's not something you think about when you initially start a site, right? You just think about writing new pieces of content. That's more exciting, right? Mm-hmm. Getting the new content out there. But I've seen some big gains myself going back and updating content. So it can increase traffic. It is important. So I'm just kind of vouching for what you're doing, I guess, already.
Yeah. It's a painful process. To give you an example, this morning I've been working on going back through. We have an article on passive income, and it's just a list of 15 passive income ideas. And, the list is fine. It ranks on page 1, but it's not the top of page 1 on Google. And, it's a pretty heavy search term. So I'm going back through and I'm looking at this article, and it just the way I have it laid out just doesn't make any sense. I just have a list of just 15 ideas, but I haven't broken them down between the classic way you make passive income is you either invest a bunch of time or invest a bunch of money. But that concept isn't clearly laid out in this article that we have on our site. That's it needs to have that laid out. Yeah. It just doesn't. So stuff like that, just structural, foundational issues with content, even if it's already ranking well, it's not going to stay ranking this well if all of our competitors know how to explain passive income, but our article doesn't do as good of a job. So even if you have rankings now, they're not guaranteed to stay there.
Absolutely. So let's talk about links a little bit. Yeah. I pulled your site up in Ahrefs. You guys have a lot of great links. What's your link building strategy?
I would say in a nutshell, it's consistency. And it's easy. I think, we've never once sent out an automated blast to hundreds of people. Everything that we've done is really, really manual. So we do a mix of guest posting. We have, one of our assistants that is leveraging our current connections to try to get us guest posting opportunities. So we try to crank out, 3 or 4 guest posts a month. Some months are better than others. And then we also really focus on building high level domain level links to our site through Harrow would help a reporter out. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yeah.
We try to stay pretty consistent with that. Again, it's one of those things where, when you are trying to balance everything else about running a business, sometimes it's hard to just take 30 minutes out of your day to email some reporter that probably has a 10% chance of using your answer. But we found that, if we just stay consistent and try to, do at least a few of those a week and, pick up a link here or there, that definitely helps.
Okay.
And then also, another thing that has really helped our link building is actually, and it's kind of weird how it's worked out. I didn't anticipate this happening, but for our entrepreneurship and blogging website, breakingthe1%.com, that's how we've really made a lot of connections in the community. And through talking about our experience in building DollarSprout, a lot of people, we've been very fortunate, have just been willing to link to us just because they see kind of the faces behind the brand as we write about kind of our journey on BTOP. Yeah. So that's sort of been really the basis for everything that we do for link building. And it does help that we have multiple folks helping us. So I'm doing it. Ben is doing it. our editors will chip in every now and again. We've got folks helping us out. So there's definitely power in numbers for sure.
Yeah. So you've got, people helping you do outreach to get guest posts, for example, right?
Yeah, we do have one virtual assistant that does help us with just emailing folks to get guest posts. And then once the person does land a guest post, then we write it, or we have, one of our freelancers write it. So, when we turn in a guest post, like, you're not going to find a whole lot of guest posts from us that are low quality, which I think probably helps our success rate. That, like, if we're going to write for someone, like, we're going to do a good job, and we're not just going to give someone like a 600 word post with some over optimized anchor text and just call it a day. We crank out a couple 1,000-word article and, try to make it good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any other tips for link building? So you're doing some guest posts, help a reporter out. And then obviously you've got, connections with other entrepreneurs that either are just because they read your blog, or like, they link to you, or maybe you guys talk about it and they're like, yeah, I'll drop you a link, or whatever. Just anything else that's you think that has either helped you attract links, or that is specific link building efforts on your own?
I will say one thing that has helped us in a way that I didn't anticipate is actually our site design. I think that when people come to, not saying that we have the best design in the world, and actually we're working on a redesign right now, but I will say that, people want to link to something that looks good. And I think if you reduce that barrier, like, I think a lot of bloggers that are, throwing a lot of ads on their sites, and, like, for instance, like, Dollar Sprout has no display ads. We have none. So you're more likely, like, if you're going to give a link to someone, like, people are more willing to give a link to someone that they know their site has, like, a clean user experience and, like, looks really good. And I think that, reducing as many barriers as possible to, like, someone not wanting to link to you is, like, really important. So, investing in, like, a fresh, clean design. So we had our site custom built back when we first launched it. Mm-hmm. So obviously not everybody can do that, or is in a position to, like, invest, a few $1,000s into a site design.
Right.
But I think if you just keep the big picture in mind and, realize that there's a lot of intangible things that go towards link building, that, it's not about blasting out 5,000 emails that, all of us get every day, asking for a link that we just delete. So I'm very proud to say we've never sent out an automated blast. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Something I hope to keep going.
That's
I don't
encouraging.
have any plans to, yeah. So, and then I think, just realizing that it takes years for, like, all this stuff to, like, compound and build up. So, like, you just got to be consistent. And
this wasn't a question I specifically had, but just thinking about, the fact that you do have, it's you and Ben, right, that started this. So I think a lot of people listening are just thinking, man, how did they, how did Jeff do all of this all on his own? When they think in their own shoes, I'm one person trying to build a blog. It's really, you've been able to double your efforts with you and Ben.
Yeah.
Being able to work on it full time, right?
Yeah. And I think it's not only that, but and this is something that, like, I hate to acknowledge, but it's not just that there's two of us. It's that there's two of us and we live together, and this is all we do. So, like, it's really not, like, it's not fair for me to say, like, if you're married and have kids and a mortgage and a job, that, like, you can do it too. Like, I've really tried to, like, tone back on that, like, rhetoric as I talk about, like, the potential that blogging provides. Because, I'm slowly realizing that our situation is not normal.
Right.
So, and I think that, Ben and I each have a significant other, and, we're this summer going to move, like, we're both moving in with our significant others this summer. So I anticipate there's going to be some slowdown happening, just because, like, we're not with each other every waking minute. So
yeah. So you guys are putting in some long hours every day.
Yeah. We're basically trying to, finish out strong before, our real lives start happening. So So yeah, it's definitely something that I can't, you know, not acknowledge.
Right.
That's been a factor.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. How important would you say Pinterest is to the overall site and the success of it?
Right now, if I had to give like a score of 1 to 10 in terms of like overall importance of success, I would say probably like a 3 or a 4. So obviously most of our traffic comes from Google, but then, you know, an important part of SEO is, you know, and this is all, of course, like, you know, assumptions, like no one knows for sure, but, you know, it's showing Google that you're doing more than just trying to appease Google. So if you're active on multiple like social channels, so for us, our 2 channels that we use are Pinterest and Facebook. And, you know, Facebook will post stuff organically, but that's, you know, more of just to do it and be present. But we also, you know, spend a little bit of money on Facebook ads just to drive traffic to our content. But yeah, between paid Facebook ads and Pinterest, you know, those are important for just like the holistic picture of our business. But yeah, I would say like for a new blogger just starting out, you know, I think that the route that we took still makes the most sense, which is, you know, I think for now, at least, you know, Pinterest, it's not what it used to be. You know, it's not as easy of traffic as it used to be, for sure. But I think it's still, when you look at it compared to, you know, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, I still think it's your best bet for getting free traffic, you know, relatively quickly.
Right.
And I think, you know, if you focus on, and all this is, of course, depending on your niche to some extent, but I think if you can, you know, build a foundation on Pinterest and then slowly start to, you know, pivot towards SEO for as more of like the long-term play, I still think that's the best approach.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment there. I do want to talk a little bit about monetization strategy. You mentioned, of course, that affiliate marketing is you know, what's working really well. You don't have any display ads anymore after, you know, your early days of Google AdSense. Anything else besides just, you know, it's affiliate marketing and you're mentioning, you know, the products naturally throughout your articles with content links?
Yeah. So a big thing for us and this is, our niche plays a big role in this part of our strategy. So since we're personal finance niche, we're not really selling a lot of products per se. Like we do virtually zero Amazon affiliate marketing. We make like $20 a month from Amazon.
Yeah.
So what we do primarily is we focus a lot on like lead generation for businesses like banks or like investment brokers or whatever, or even, you know, different like gig economy type jobs like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, companies where like they are basically paying for customer acquisition. So that's like what we've really focused on is, you know, trying to find like a low barrier to entry offer that an affiliate is willing to pay, you know, a couple bucks for, and then we just throw volume at that. So for instance, you know, like let's say Instacart is willing to pay, I have to look at the numbers, I don't know off the top of my head, but like let's say they're willing to pay $10 for every new person that signs up to be a shopper with them. You know, that is, you know, a pretty low barrier to entry. Like, you know, if someone wants to sign up, like, okay, they sign up, it's free, it's no loss to them, and they have this opportunity to make money, and, you know, we'll get, you know, a few bucks. So most of our commissions are quite low, usually between, you know, $2 and $50 per lead or conversion or sign up or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the vast majority of what we do is just lead generation for other companies. Okay. So very few readers of ours actually like pull out their wallet to buy something from our site, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. They're just signing up to, I've seen like, you know, survey through Swag Bucks or Instacart or Uber, right? So
all of that stuff is, that's where we've really focused a lot of our attention.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Is there anything else? I mean, there's obviously a ton that you're doing, but just sort of a final, you know, question here in terms of, Is there anything else that's working really well right now for your site that you'd like to let the listeners know about?
That's a good question. It is hard to like pinpoint a single thing. I think that more of just like the underlying like habit that Ben and I have developed of, constantly auditing what's working and what is not working. And then for the stuff that's not working, decide if, it's a volume problem, like you're not doing enough of the thing that's not working yet, or you're doing it wrong, or you just suck at it. So, the problem with us our first year was we were, trying to do this subscription-based model and it wasn't working. And it wasn't a matter of, if we just work harder, it'll get better. Like we couldn't have been working any harder. We were doing it wrong. We sucked at it. So we found something that worked, even if it was like a totally different strategy and affiliate marketing and, social media type stuff, like that worked. So then we, ditched what wasn't working and then pivoted to what was. And I think like constantly applying that mindset to your business is, it's what's gotten us to this point so far. And, we're always, making mistakes and, doing stuff that ends up being a waste of money, but we're pretty good about ditching the stuff that's not working and then just keep reinvesting towards what is working.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, being willing to change and focus on what is showing the results and focus your energy there. I think that makes a lot of sense. So if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to go? Should they just go to, you tell me, Dollar Sprout or Breaking the 1%?
Yeah. So if you are interested in online business and blogging and entrepreneurship and all that, I definitely recommend checking out our website, breakingthe1%.com. And we actually have a Facebook group associated with that page where Ben and I are fairly active in there. We have a couple thousand folks in there that are, getting blogging tips and sharing insights and whatnot. And then if you want to see what, Ben and I spend 95% of our time on, check out dollarsprout.com. That's where we have all of our personal finance content. And that's where, we're really trying to build this out to be, something hopefully one day pretty big. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff, so much for coming on the Niche Pursuits podcast. I love seeing the success that you are having with dollarsprout.com. Thanks for sharing all the tips and really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Spencer. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks a lot.